Thank you so much for that. That was really informative. So just we will be circulating that presentation to everyone. So don't worry if you didn't have a chance to write down all the notes. That's absolutely fine. You'll get a full document of that as well. We'll also be, if there's any questions that we don't get to in this, we can also circulate the answers to those questions as well. This webinar will also be up on YouTube, so if you have to drop off early as well, you can go and watch the remainder of the webinar to get the questions later. Perfect. So thank you for that, PJ. That was great.
I think I
So I
ate into
guess
your
we'll
time a
get...
bit.
No, you're absolutely
I
fine.
did
Don't worry
lie. I
about
told
that.
Alana, I was like, I'll probably only be like 10 seconds per slide. Obviously not. I'm
10
watching.
minutes. No, that's fine. That's perfect. Okay, so straight down into it. I guess what we'll do is we'll start with the funding ones because we've got quite a few funding questions come in, and I think that's a lot of the reason people come to webinars like this. So the first one is, what funding is available through the LECP, or is there any funding available?
Well, the LECP itself doesn't have funding, but like us, the community team, are associated with the LECP. The LCDC are associated with the LECP, and there is grants through our own section, so the community development grants. The LCDC have their own capital grants also. Underneath our same section, where community and sports are the sports capital grants. The social inclusion community activation program, which would be referred to as SciCap, there's an action on the SciCap program under our high level goal. They also have their own grants through anywhere from the down to the individual for small, I don't know, bursaries or individual supports from employment, all the way up to small community grants. But also then you'd have departmental grants on a far larger scale, like the Community Centre Investment Fund. So short answer, no, the LECP doesn't have its own funding, but there is a reference to a lot of different type of fundings that are available. But any questions around funding like that, you can come directly to myself or Kieran, and we'll be able to probably direct you in the best, what's the most suitable grant or funding stream for the purpose that you're looking for.
Perfect. So to summarize, there is funding available, not directly to the LECP, but a lot of different programs and directorates, etc., reference the LECP. So it's a good thing to reference it when you're applying for funding. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely,
Perfect.
yeah. And so if some people just say like, oh, the this might be in the LCP, but if you can look at the action code and say action 2.22 says this and the KPI is that, and how we're going to contribute to how we're going to contribute to that particular action. So kind of getting specific and saying how exactly your particular idea or project is related to LECP just strengthens your case when once people are assessing your application for funding.
Perfect. And I can see as well that Marta, my colleague in the PPN, has popped in a link into the chat there for everyone. So that has a link to a lot of the funding that is available currently in Cork City. We do update that monthly as well. Also, I know if you sign on to the community team's newsletter, they send out an e-bulletin monthly. So that also has a lot of funding and grants available in it. So it's definitely worth signing up for that. We'll send on the links for both of those as well if you're not already on each of those mailing lists. So then on to the next question, I guess, where can communities access funding? We've kind of spoken about that. Contact PJ or Kieran,
Yep.
or apply to the newsletter, look on the website. Also, you can check out the PPN's website and you can find that. And then, what types of funding can communities access? Is it like capital? Is it social inclusion funding? Like what sort of funding is it?
Yeah, so typically for grants to come out, there's either program or there's capital. So obviously there'd be a rate. It's not always the same. I suppose the community development grants this year there was a stream for program and there was a stream for capital. And I suppose just what I've seen this year, it's important when community groups are applying to these funding just to make sure you're applying to the right one because sometimes people do apply to the program fund when really what they were looking for was capital. So
And
um,
can you just explain what the difference is? Like, what is program funding and what is capital funding for people like me who don't really understand which is
So,
which?
So capital really is when you're buying kind of bigger items. So they could be equipment, it could be up as far as something as big as a car, it could be things that you really need a receipt for or an invoice for, you know. So they're kind of hard items
So
that
not like a staff member. You can't buy a new staff
yes.
member.
So
Okay,
like
perfect.
program costing would be the cost associated with running as with a program. So that may be like paying for maybe a tutor or something like that to come in. But these are costs really associated with running the program. So it's not the physical or the hard or the item says like furniture for or PCs or things like this, you know. So that's kind of the difference between the two.
Okay, and I'm assuming in all of the funding applications, all of this is in the fine print. So I guess good advice is to make sure you're reading what you can apply for through the grant so you're not wasting your time in filling out an application
Yes.
and it's for the wrong thing. And I guess if you're unsure, you can contact yourself or Kieran.
And it definitely for any of our, well, yeah, we care, but I will probably direct it to our colleague Sarah O'Callaghan, who looks after all the grants. And Sarah really welcomes when people reach out and ask her questions before they make the applications because she's more than delighted to help because there's nothing worse when you see a community group apply and if they just asked the question beforehand, they would just maybe tweak the application slightly and would have fallen into the right category or just it would have made it a bit easier for them. So never be afraid to reach out to whoever is running the fund. They're more than delighted to ask questions because we want to try and make sure people get grants and funding. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Perfect. Can we circulate? We might circulate Sarah O'Callaghan's contact details as well
Yep.
and just make sure that she's put down as the person to direct funding questions to as well so people have that as well. Um, so then this is another question that actually came in late last night. Is there possible connections and funding opportunities that are relevant to the ECP that are not made public? So I guess what this person is trying to allude to is there stuff that might go on that communities don't aren't made aware of.
As far as I'm aware, no, but I will definitely go look into this to see if there's anything that it's so it's not publicized so much that I don't even know about it. But most of the grants and funding is publicly available, and also that because it is public funds, when we have to report back on what money was spent on, that we have to show what money went through what programs and such. So there's never really a program that well, I'm aware of that it wouldn't be publicized. But if maybe I could stand to be corrected on that one. But as far as I know, no, all our grants and funding are publicly available. So we'd be advertising for people to apply, and yeah, so they're all kind of publicly
I
available.
guess it makes sense that everything's publicly available. If you want people to apply for things, they have to be aware that it
That's
exists. So
it.
there's no point in
So,
keeping things secret. Perfect. So then we'll go on to that was all the funding questions we got. Again, if anybody has any other funding questions, you can send me a message in the chat function there and I'll pose it to PJ on your behalf. So then we'll move on to progress. I guess the first one that came in was how do you monitor progress? You kind of went over that with the action tracker and you mentioned that that would be publicly available. So that'll be great. And then this, I guess, is the same thing again, worded slightly differently. How can the public tell how much is achieved in the LECP? I suppose the action tracker will do that for people, will it?
yeah, so exactly. So this would have been at the moment when this person asked this question, it would have been difficult to know what has been achieved. And of course, this was raised in our mid-review in November, and that is why we're taking the action to make the LDCP action tracker publicly available so people know exactly where particular actions are, what progress they're on. And so it's just a bit more transparency, and that'll stop the confusion if people are asking like the PPN about what's happening with this action or emailing different people in Cork City Council. It'll be up there, it'll be publicly available, and you'll see the most up-to-date comment on where it's at. So yeah, so in the
Well,
coming months that will
anything
be
that
there.
reduces my workload, I very much welcome. So I'm delighted
No
to hear that
problem
that
at
will
all.
be publicly available. I know our members in the PPN will be as well. So then the next question, and again, you mentioned this before, what happens if you don't complete an element of the LECP? So I know you mentioned that sometimes things are unfeasible. Just,
Yeah.
sometimes it can be capacity, sometimes it's the person doesn't exist anymore to carry out that action, and that's fine. But the follow up for this was, does this mean that this element will be automatically added to the next LECP?
I wouldn't say it'd be automatically added to LECP, so it's all down to the review. So we'll have to look at what the action was about, what was the KPI, who are the lead partners on it, and we'll have to then figure out where along that line, where in the plan did it not go right, and maybe this was a time sensitive action that maybe since it was put in that no longer the need is there, or maybe the need has changed. So I won't say it automatically goes in, but every action will be reviewed, and the any actions that will be reviewed in are getting put back to our stakeholders for further consultation. And we will say this from the mid review in November, from the chatting with our high level goal leads, that it doesn't seem that this action is working. We're thinking about amending it or taking it out, but there will be further dialogue there about what's the best action to take with it. But I just suppose for the last LECP Pure Cork, 87% of the actions were completed, so which
Oh
is a
wow.
very high number, but we're expecting that actions aren't going to work in practice, but that's why we have ongoing reviews and is a live document. So hopefully we'll achieve a higher number for completion for this year. But like I said, no, it doesn't mean that any action will automatically go in. It'll be subject to review.
So I guess one of the key takeaways for communities is if there's an action that you really care about, make sure you look up who the lead partners are in that on that action, and make sure you're feeding back to the lead partners to say it's really important either that we push for this one to happen, or if it doesn't happen in this iteration, make sure to get it included in some way in the next iteration of the LECP. Keep bringing it up at the reviews.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So then we had a few questions come in relation to disability.
Yep.
So obviously that's a big topic under the LECP. I know there's a few key actions under that as well. So how does the LECP affect disability access work? And I guess there's both direct impacts and indirect as well. So if you could speak to both of those, that'd be great.
Yeah, when I suppose the first thing that comes to mind is that we have a very good relationship with the Department of Social Protection, and Dermot Crosby, who is an employer relations officer with the Department of Social Protection, is actually on the LCDC, and we speak a lot about how to improve access to employment for people with disabilities. So um, we'd in tandem work with the DSP to try and promote programs such as like the wage subsidy scheme, which is a program to subsidize the wages of workers who have a disability. So you're reducing the barrier to employment for them. There's the workplace experience program, which I believe we're across the council will be taking someone on soon enough in our own section, and that provides someone with an opportunity. So someone who might be distant from the workplace, it's an opportunity to come in on a workplace experience program as it is, but it's paid, and they will receive on the job training, but also some formal training as well. And overall, I suppose there is going to be a disability strategy that's going to be developed, and that's going to look at issues related to people with disabilities across the city and across all, it's across recreation, through employment, to infrastructure, whatever it may be. That so this strategy is going to look at across the board of improving the lives and well-being of people with disabilities. And I preempted that the question is going to come about the disability strategy. So
Yeah, we do
uh,
have one in there.
yeah, so little work, in all honesty, has been done around this because we are waiting for I suppose I spoke earlier about resources and getting someone who is going to lead on this strategy. So we do have a new grade 7 Healthy Ireland worker who's going to be taking the lead with this disability strategy. Currently, there is a group put together of council staff who are going to and going to be led by the Healthy Island worker, who is then going to formulate a disability working group, who will then be involved in the creation and I suppose implementation of the strategy. So in due course, we'll be looking for appropriate people to be involved in that working group, and suppose to help to create the most appropriate and most impactful strategy for people living with disabilities in Cork City.
Perfect. No, that's great to hear. So I guess like we're definitely some of our members in the PPN are really interested in that. So I'll definitely be in contact to figure out timelines in relation to that, and I'll communicate it back to our members.
Brilliant.
Once you have that staff member, you were saying it's a grade 7, grade 6 or
That's
7?
it. Grade 7,
Once
yeah,
you have the contact details for that person, we might, share them as well, or if you could make that publicly available, because we've had a few questions about that as well, that'd be great.
absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. And then you actually answered through your first question there. Does the LECP do anything to increase access for work with people? To access work for people with disabilities? So that's been done as well. And how does the LECP support disabled people? You alluded to that in the first question as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
thank you for that section.
and just to pick up on that, I suppose it's very important to note that like the LECP explicitly prioritizes like people in communities experience inclusion and disadvantage, which includes disabled people. So like actions towards supporting people with disability is kind of it's embedded across social inclusion, health, employment, and across even place-based actions. So it's not just an isolated into a single standalone section. You'll see actions related to supporting people with disabilities across high level goal 2. So it's our own partnership, inclusion and equality. There's an action there about providing supports to people with disabilities about starting their own businesses. So you'll see it in a number of different actions across different high level goals, which it's so important to have. And really, it's all about removing the societal barriers. So someone it's not that their disability themselves is disabling them, but maybe it's the environment, it's the attitudes, it's maybe exclusionary policies. So the LECP looks to try and improve those things rather than just make life easier for those people with particular disabilities.
Yes, it's great
And
to hear
what
that. We all talk about universal design. So a society that designs for disabled people or people with disabilities is also good for lone parents and young people, etc., etc.
And
Go
one
ahead,
thing that
Patrick.
also came to my head is that we will be developing a social inclusion marker, which is hopefully then going to be a part of our applications for funding. And in short, that basically means a social inclusion marker is a score to say how much benefit is going to the people that you say that the project is about. So let's just say if it was a project helping people with particular disability, you would then see, okay, who were people with this particular disability consulted? Are they a part of the team that's going to be rolling out? So it just gives a score to say how much work and how much consideration was given to the people who this particular project is about. So a higher amount of scoring will go to those applications who directly involve the lived experience of people with that particular. So it could be someone from a minority background, it could be someone with disability, it could be whatever it is the action or the project is trying to support. We're going to see, have you spoke to those people? Are they a part of this? Who have you consulted about it? So there will be scores, higher scores given to groups who are closer associated with the people they say they're going to benefit. So that's something else that's coming down the line also.
When you have more information on that, the social inclusion marker as well, we can also, I guess, email something out to those who partook in the webinar today, so we can get it out to you directly as well when we have more information about that. Thank you
Absolutely.
for that. So then, onto a section about community. So how can community groups use the LECP? And I guess myself and PJ were kind of discussing this a little bit just before the webinar started. And one of the things we wanted to show you was actually how you use, like how you can look at the LECP and how you can search it yourself. So I'm just going to share my screen there and we'll just show you how to actually search the LECP and figure out what part is most applicable to you. So you can see what I typed in there, Cork City LECP, and then I clicked on this. So this brings you to the Cork City Council website. This is the section that they have on the local economic community plan. If you scroll right down, you'll see that you have it in English. So this is what the document looks like in English. They also have it in Irish. So if you click onto the document and wait for it to load, and you can either on your laptop or on your keyboard press Ctrl and F at the same time. That brings you to the search function, which pops up here in the corner, or you could just go to where the magnifying glass is in the right hand corner, press on this, type in a word that's of interest to you. So we'll say community. Did I spell it correctly? Yep. So there's 76 pages found. So every time the word community is referenced in the document, you can click on that and it will bring you, well, it should, when you click on it, bring you to that specific point. So you can see it highlighted here. And you can get quite niche with it. So probably if we limited it a bit more, say disability, search that. there's 15 pages found. So you can click on it and it will bring you to exactly where that word is mentioned. So I guess when you're writing funding applications or when you're looking at how to use the LECP yourself, this is one thing that you can do. Actually go to the document, search the word or the topic that's of interest to you and see exactly where that falls in within the LECP. And that will probably further help the City Council staff to figure out what you're interested in, who to communicate with and who to put you in contact with. So I just thought I'd show you that very quickly. And then we'll go back to some of the other questions is how can a community group get involved with the LECP?
I would say, and this is not a paid promotion, but the PPN is the main formal route for community employment or community involvement in the LECP. So we always, and many of our actual grants, we ask if for the LCTC grants, when people are applying, we say, are you a member of the PPN? And if not, we encourage people to do so, because the main reason is if you are part of the PPN, you can then feed your issues or concerns to the PPN reps. And there are a number of PPN reps then that sit on the LCDC. So the LCDC are the main body that looks after the implementation of the LECP. So you basically have a direct line to the main committee that's looking after the implementation of the LECP. So it's very important to have your voice heard through that format. Another thing you can do is when there's consultations and other engagement events that are on, is to try and attend, to participate, to get your voice heard. From a more, I'd say, like if you see a project or an action that you feel strongly about that's in the LECP, your group or your community, whatever it may be, can actually see can you are able to co-deliver. So it may be an environmental action that if something your community group does, it actually you're contributing to achieving the LECP action. So
And
that's another.
how can groups find out, I guess, about these projects? Where are they promoted or where are they advertised?
Well, the best way to do it is if you have a specific, if you see a specific action that you're interested in, come to me and Kieran again. We can direct you to the high level goal lead if we don't have the answer, and then the high level goal lead will be able to communicate with you about opportunities that may be available for you to contribute. Obviously, there are some actions that you might not be able to contribute on. That it's, I suppose, they're solely under the responsibility of a particular high level goal lead or a particular lead, but definitely by asking the questions, there will be opportunities to contribute. Around using the LECP, like it is a fantastic advocacy tool. And I think I said this earlier in the presentation that once you're applying for funding or you're trying to make the case for whatever the particular issue, reference back to LECP because it is a statutory document that's been signed off and that it's in place for the 6 years. So it's very important that you, if you see something that you feel strongly about that's in there and you feel that it's not being achieved, you can always refer back to that to Cork City Council or whatever the group may be, or TDs or councillors or whatever it may be, or people on the LCDC or your PPN rep. And it's very important to, I think, to hold institutions to account by using the LECP. So it, number one, shows the power of the document, but also the importance of being part of the consultation and getting actions that you feel strongly about into it. So when we're thinking about the next iteration, it's a huge achievement, and to get an action into this as well. So just shows the importance of that.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And then I guess, well, we're actually running out of time, so there were a few other questions that came in. So what we'll do is I'll make a list of those questions. Did any come in the chat now? I haven't seen any come in the chat in more recent minutes. But if any others do come in, what we'll do is we'll actually type out the answers and we'll send them out to everybody who attended online today. And that will include the questions that came in on when will the next iteration of the LECP start, when is the next consultation happening, and yeah, do other city council sections or what agencies collaborate. A lot of these you can actually look into the document and find them yourself, but we'll actually type out some answers there and circulate them to everyone. Everything that's been answered so far will be up on the YouTube channel on the page, and we'll have the presentation up there as well. Marta has put a good few links that will support people with the LECP into the chat. We will also share all of those, so you can expect an email after this. Perfect. So I think that's it. We'll again share PJ and Kieran's contact details. We'll share Sarah's contact details in relation to funding. Thank you everybody for coming along. It was great to have you all here. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, you can direct them into myself and Marta or get onto PJ or Kieran directly. Perfect. Thanks, PJ.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Questions.
Bye.